Welcome back to the shop. So I planned to start this timing cover and timing chain yesterday. Unfortunately, food poisoning got the better of me, so day was a complete write-off. Got off work a bit early today. I'm gonna tie into it and see how far we can get. I'm gonna be using the Cloyes heavy-duty timing set. I think I mentioned this in a previous video. This part number there is the 3029X, and that is a double roller. Not sure whether the stock set's still in there. They actually had nylon gears originally, so I'm told, and they're single roller, and we're going with double. So we got that, and then I've got the Fel-Pro gasket set, TCS 45167. That's got everything in there. I actually ended up with two of them because one said it was lost in shipping, so I went ahead and ordered from somebody else, and then of course they both showed up. So pretty complete set. It's got both your water pump gaskets, fuel pump gasket, front cover seal, obviously your timing cover seal, and then your section for the front of the oil pan, which you just cut off your old piece, stick this new one in there. And then this set I opted for. You pay a few bucks more, but it's got the speedy sleeve in there, just in case the end of the crank is worn there, because quite often these seals will cut a groove into it. So worth the couple extra bucks. I may not need it, but it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So let's go out there, see how far we can get this pulled apart, and if we can at least get it prepped, then I hopefully continue to work on it through the week here after work. So let's get after it. So get everything pulled off of here. Pull the power steering pump, take the brackets off, we'll pull the fan and alternator and brackets as well. And then we'll just have to get down there and pull the balancer. All right, so we got everything off of there. Just got fuel pump sitting off to the side there. Got the water pump off, power steering pump, alternator. I just verified top dead center on number one. Just pulled that plug out and make sure we're there, and that way it saves us having to crank it over. All right, so I wasn't going to pull my radiator here, but with my impact on the crank bolt, it's pretty tight, and I just don't want to risk if it does spin out, it's going to put it right in there, and being that it's a brand new rad, I'd rather not destroy it. So I've only got to disconnect one hose and the two trans lines anyways, and 4 bolts and pop it out. So let's go ahead and do that. So that took all of 2 minutes to pull that out of there, and that'll make our life a lot easier. Be able to see what we're doing here. Don't have to worry about damaging that radiator either. That aluminum's quite soft, especially the fins. Even just brushing up against it'll bend them over. So that was on there. So leave that there for now. We'll pull the rest of the bolts out. That's that. All right, so I'll go grab my harmonic balancer puller and we'll get that yanked off of there. Just in case anybody's curious, I've got the OTC Stinger number 4531. Decent set, comes with all your adapters and half decent instruction set, which is nice. Some of the cheap Chinese ones don't really give you a whole lot of info, but this set's been good to me so far. It's fairly heavy duty. And, well built. I like the OTC stuff. I've got a fair bit of their stuff, and not your average kind of consumer grade stuff. It's kind of low level pro grade stuff. So go see if she'll do the job. So I got the puller installed, and go ahead and crank this off of here. Hopefully it should come off fairly easy. I've just got my short 3/8 ratchet here. I might have to go grab a longer one. There we go. So on these FEs, you do have this sleeve that just sits in there. You just got to knock this little keyway out of there. Just grab my brass hammer, pop that out, don't lose it, and this should just slip right off of here. We'll scrape the bulk of this off just to minimize the amount that could potentially fall down below here into the oil pan once we pull the cover off. All right, so after some cleaning and excavating through some grease there, we've got all our bolts exposed, so just the ones along the front, and then there's 4 coming up through the pan there, so we'll get those popped out, pop the cover off, and see what we're looking at. Well, there she is in all her glory. I knew this was going to be bad, but this is way worse than I expected. You could actually probably lift this chain off of here if you wanted to. So that was definitely a ticking time bomb, just waiting to slip off or jump a tooth. I'm actually really surprised that it hasn't jumped a tooth. Looks like everything's still lined up here. This dot should line up with our keyway, and it does. So I'm really glad we tackled this, not only for the oil leak, but even just when I was working getting the balancer off, you could hear the slapping around inside the cover. But that is bad. When I did the one on the 460 and the F250 there, it had 280,000 kilometers on it. And it was bad. It had, you know, a bit of slop in it, but this is far worse. And this is just the single roller. So we're gonna upgrade for the double. You can see there, that's pretty excessive. So with the crankshaft sleeve here, it's kind of what I expected. There's definitely a groove worn in there. So I'm glad we got the Fel-Pro kit that's got the speedy sleeve in there. So we're 1 inch 875, and then right in the worst part of the groove there, we're 1/870. So 5 thou, that's enough though that I'll definitely put the repair sleeve on there. That'll just slip right over with the comes with a Loctite kind of adhesive in there to hold it on. So we'll get this all cleaned up, slip that on, and that should solve our leak issue. It's pretty tough to see the seal itself in there, but it's rock hard and pretty well whooped. So we'll knock that seal out, get this cover cleaned up. I'm gonna have to run into town here and get myself some more of that heavy duty gunk gel. Everywhere in town here doesn't have it in stock. Apparently they're waiting on more to show up, so I'm gonna try Napa in town. If I can't get it, I'll just grab some brake clean in between. Super clean and brake clean, we should be able to get this disaster cleaned up. All right, so that looks a little better. Managed to get that all cleaned up. Inside cleaned out. I got my new seal in there. Drove the old one out. And like I said, it's pretty old and brittle, so it was definitely leaking pretty bad. To get the old one out, I just placed it on the bench here and just used a drift and a flat chisel. Went around and just knocked it out. It was in there pretty good. Don't go just beating on one spot, trying to work your way around. It'll eventually pop, but you want to be careful with these aluminum covers. So that should be all ready to go. I couldn't find any of the gunk heavy duty gel, so apparently engine cleaner is next to impossible to find right now. So I went to Napa. They had a couple cans of their engine degreaser left, and it's a CRC brand. Worked quite well. Like I said, new seals in. I like to pack mine with grease before I install. Does 2 things: gives you some lube on startup, and also keeps the spring from popping out as you drive it in there. And if you don't have one, invest in a seal driver set. This is just a cheap one I picked up years ago. I think I paid a little over 20 bucks for this one. It's nothing fancy, it's run-of-the-mill cheap Chinese. So that's that. I got our speedy sleeve installed on the crank sleeve here. This was also quite a tight fit, so I took this, cleaned it with some brake clean, buffed it with some 1000 grit. And then what I ended up doing is I put this in the freezer for a good couple hours, and then I took this and heated it up. I actually just set it on top of my wood stove. It slid on relatively easy. I still had to use a seal driver and just give it a good couple of whacks to put it on there. So that eliminates our groove, and we should be leak free once this goes back on. Alright, so we got the old timing set pulled out of there, and got the new one fit up, and I ran into a little issue. The drive pin for the fuel pump eccentric here was way too short. It wasn't even coming through the cam gear. So I did some head scratching, and then went back and looked at the Ford service specs, and this set's been replaced. Like I said, they originally were nylon gear. This one is the aluminum gear, so it was changed out at some point. It is a true Ford piece. But the Ford specs, if you look at the parts breakdown, there's a spacer, and if you look in the video, you'll see it right on the end of the cam there, and this is it. So for whatever reason, when this aluminum gear was installed, this spacer didn't get taken out, so it was sitting proud. So if you're going to go install one of these aftermarket double rollers, you've got to make sure to take this spacer out. Otherwise, you're going to have a drive pin issue and an alignment issue, because as you can see, that spacer is pre-built into the new gear. So if you run into that issue, that's why. I was scratching my head for a minute there, trying to figure out why my pin was way too short. This pin is still a little on the short side. You can see it here. I measured. And we're 125 thou shy, which would possibly be okay, but I'm not too comfortable with that. So what I'm going to do is, I've just got some steel rod here. I'm just going to make up this little shim that'll go in the backside up against the cam. It doesn't really even need to be attached, because we've got enough engagement in the cam. It's just going to be a spacer, so you don't have to worry about strength or anything like that. I may have to change this washer as well, or make a custom one, because this was a press fit on the old one. I had to drive that out of there. But most of these new gears, it's not a press fit, it's slip fit. And in case you're wondering, the OD of this rod is 5/16, or just shy of 5/16. It's 312 thou. So I'll make up a little spacer, we'll fire that in there, find another thick washer here, and we'll get this back together. Alright, so I got my spacer made up. 125 thou wasn't enough. I actually cleaned that hole out. There was some gunk in there that was holding it a little bit proud. So 281 thou will work, which I think that's what, 930 seconds. And that'll still, I marked there, that's the end of our cam. So it still gives us a bit of engagement there. Kind of splits the difference on both ends. Ideally, I would go find some 5/16 and make a new bit for this, but it's Sunday, and I want to get this wrapped up. So this will be fine. All right, so I got that pin all fit up there. I did have to clearance it just a hair, but we got good engagement on the end of the cam there. Good engagement on the eccentric, so we don't have to worry about that slipping off there. Some guys I've heard, if you get a ball bearing of the right size, you can fire that in the hole. With a little RTV, you'll kind of hold it in place so it doesn't roll out on you. But our little extension on the end there, I didn't have any 5/16 rods, so we just had to use some smaller, but it doesn't matter what size it is as long as it holds it out. So there we go, got everything installed. I did find a thick washer that covers and holds that pin in there, so that'll be fine. Torque that to 40 foot-pounds. Manual calls for 35 to 45, so went right smack in the middle. Timing marks are lined up there. This is a 3-way adjustable, so you can retard it 4 degrees or advance it 4 degrees, but we just installed straight up on the original marks. And make sure to put your oil slinger back on there. And then with the cover, I just tacked the gasket on there with some aviation form of gasket as well. And that way you don't have to try and fight holding the gasket in place while you get all your bolts started. Makes life a little easier, and it also helps seal. This was a little pitted on the aluminum there, so it'll help prevent any leaks. All right, so we're all ready for the cover. Got our real fine Vita black RTV at the bottom there. Then we're going to use this crank sleeve to make sure we center everything up. So we'll throw the cover on, get this in there, and get a couple bolts in. You don't want to put this in last because there is a bit of wiggle room in these bolts here. And if you try and get everything torqued down and go to put this in, there's a chance you can tear the seal. So get this in while you're assembling. And I put a light coat of grease on there to make sure it's not dry on startup. And everything should be good. All right, so I got everything back together there. Got the balancer on, pulley on, water pump, fuel pump. I just got to get my alternator bolted up and just cleaning some parts for that. Everything went smooth except for that crank sleeve, and I'll show you what we ran into there. So this is the issue I ran into with the speedy sleeve. If you notice in the video, the original crank sleeve itself has a taper on there with a bit of lead in, and this is just a blunt end. And the issue I was having is the seal comes in from the back of the timing cover. Trying to get the sleeve on there, and it's a keyed shaft, so you can't wiggle it. It's also a slip fit on the shaft. And every time I tried to push it in, the seal would kind of roll like that and push the spring out. So I fought with it, tried it a couple different ways. I ended up peeling the speedy sleeve off. We only had a 5 thou groove. I think we'll be okay with the new seal. It's a fairly tight fit, but something to be aware of. I think your best bet would be to possibly put the speedy sleeve in, and then if you have access to a lathe, just buzz this front end off once you've got it on there, because it definitely causes an issue. But other than that, everything's in. I'll do a follow-up video. I apologize for this video being late, and it's probably a little choppy because that food poisoning incident kind of set me back. I didn't have any good solid days to work on this, so I've just been kind of doing it whenever I have time. But we'll go ahead and get the radiator mounted up and coolant in, and throw the alternator belts on, and we should be able to fire it up tomorrow night here. Check for leaks, and hopefully everything's better than it was. I don't think it can be worse considering the shape of some of the stuff that came off of there. So that's it for now. I've got the bench seat from the 71 off in the upholstery shop, so hopefully that should be back next week. We'll do a little video on that when we get that back in, but just want to get this one wrapped up and hopefully get on to some other projects on the 68 here. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.